Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today I'm going to be trying out Claire and Christina's recipe for roasted Brussels sprouts with pistachio and lime. So this is from the BA series Making Perfect Thanksgiving, and I do these Bon Appetit recipe tests every single Wednesday. So if you like this one, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Without any further ado, let's get started on this recipe. So first up, I do have the oven preheating to 450 degrees. Since it's such a high temperature, it'll probably reach where we need it to be by the time we've got the Brussels sprouts ready to go. Speaking of Brussels sprouts, these are the smaller variety. And all we need to do is take this 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts, wash them, and then trim them up. And the trimming is really just taking off this kind of woody bottom bit here. We're not trying to remove all the outside leaves unless there's something kind of funky going on where they need to come off. We're going to just try to keep them intact. So I personally like when some of the leaves on the outside fall off. So if anything gets detached while I'm trimming, I'm just going to go ahead and toss that into my bowl. Now, the thing we'll need to look out for with that is the separated leaves could end up burning while they're in the oven. So if that's the case, we'll just have to take a look at them and we may have to fish those out at the end. But I don't want to kind of preemptively exclude them from being part of the recipe because I like the crispy bits. I think that the loose leaves sometimes taste really good. So I'm going to keep them in there. So Brussels sprouts are one of those foods that I think are kind of an acquired taste. Growing up, I always assumed that I wouldn't like them, but I never tried Brussels sprouts. And then when I was in college, I was working at this really nice restaurant and we had Brussels sprouts on the menu and they had this really glazy balsamic vinegar sauce that was really like sticky and sweet at the same time. I think it had cubed up pancetta or some sort of like pork product in there, but it was really fatty and like in a good way fatty. And it was absolutely so delicious. And so that's what kind of turned me on to Brussels sprouts. All right, so I've got my 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts. They're all cleaned up. I'm now taking just some vegetable oil and adding this in. I'm assuming the vegetable oil is because of the higher smoke point versus olive oil. The recipe doesn't explicitly say why we're using this versus olive oil, which would be more flavorful. It could be that the olive oil flavor might be overpowering combined with everything else that's going on in this recipe. Oops. I tried to get away. So I'm going to swirl these around in my large bowl and just kind of toss them to get them coated in the oil. All right, and so those are looking pretty evenly coated. I'm going to do a 2-finger pinch of salt, just all over the top here. Go in with some cracked black pepper. All right, so these are ready for the oven. So I've got a large rimmed baking tray. This is a half sheet pan. So I've got my loose leaves here, but I'm going to pop those in as well. Spread everyone out into a single layer. You want to give these guys a little bit of room to kind of breathe and move around. If they're too kind of bunched together, they're going to actually end up steaming, and that's not what we want. We want them to be separated. We want them to have this high, dry heat, and that's what's going to get us the crispy outside. So I think that that looks pretty good. I'm going to pop these into the oven. Now, this is not a set it and forget it situation. We've got to keep coming back and shaking these and moving them around to make sure that they're evenly getting kind of bronzed up. So into the oven we go for 15 minutes. So while the Brussels sprouts are in the oven roasting, we can go ahead and start prepping the ingredients for the sauce. So I've got some pistachios here. I'm going to need 3 tablespoons of these and we're going to toast them up in some butter over the stove. So first I got to get these all out of their shell. You can buy pistachios already shelled. I was having a little bit of trouble finding raw pistachios out of the shell. You want to make sure that you buy raw pistachios here because we're toasting these. So if you buy already toasted pistachios, they're just going to be burnt. All right, so I've got some unsalted butter. I'm melting this down over medium heat. And then once it starts to foam, we're going to go ahead and add in our pistachios. So you want to use a large skillet here. So this is a 10-inch stainless steel skillet. Having everything kind of spread out allows it to cook more quickly. So essentially what we're going to be doing here is creating some brown butter, and while we're making the brown butter, we're also going to be toasting our pistachios. All right. So Brussels sprouts. The little leaves are definitely going to be burned by the time we're done, but that's okay. So we're just shaking these around to get them loosened up, make sure they don't stick, and then back into the oven. So it says 5 to 10 minutes more. We're trying to get them evenly kind of darkened all the way around the surface. So I'm going to go for 5 minutes and see how they're looking. And so this is going to happen pretty quickly here. We're already getting a little bit of bubbling around the exterior of the pan. So you can see the milk solids are separating from the rest of the butter. And so the milk solids are what's going to toast up and give us that brown butter. So milk solids can go from, you know, brown to burnt pretty quickly. So I'm just keeping it moving around a little bit, trying to make sure I'm getting an even distribution of heat. All right, so it's been 5 minutes. Let's see if the Brussels sprouts are looking ready. Pulling these out. I'm gonna put them in for 5 more minutes. Maybe 3 more minutes. All right, and I think that this is as foamy as we're gonna maybe get. So I'm gonna pop in my pistachios, a pinch of salt. Let's give these a stir. And so we're looking for the butter to brown, we're looking for the pistachios to brown, and this should take, according to the recipe, about 4 minutes. So I'll just keep everything moving, scoot it around, and try to make sure that we're getting an even browning on this. So the butter is starting to brown. I'm seeing little bits of milk solid that are starting to toast. I can also smell that the butter and the nuts are starting to get a little bit toasty. The color is getting a little bit more golden. So I'm going to go ahead really quick and actually pull off those loose leaves. So initially I said I was going to just let those kind of ride and we'd see if they got burned. I think it's going to give an off flavor if they're hanging out in there for too long and we get all that like kind of burnt smell kind of permeating through everything. So I'm getting these crispy bits off the tray. Cool, so I'm going to pop these back into the oven then. And now we're going to lower the temperature down to 350. We're going to put these in for 10 minutes. And just in that little bit of time, the butter is looking really nice and brown. I think we've got maybe 1 more minute here, and then we're going to drain this off. All right, I'm going to call that good there. And I don't have a slotted spoon, which is a little bit surprising, so I'm just going to kind of scoot these over. Maybe I'll go this way. Scoot them over to the edge and scrape them off. And now we've got our toasty pistachios, and we'll just let these cool down. So still over medium heat now, we're going to add in our lime juice and our sweeteners. Got 2 tablespoons of this date molasses, 2 tablespoons of fresh lime juice, teaspoon of honey. It says to swirl the pan to emulsify. All right, and the Brussels sprouts still have a few minutes, so I'm going to turn the glaze off. We're going to add some water to this, but not until we're ready to final serve. All right, so the Brussels sprouts are potentially done. I'm going to pull these out and just check for tenderness using a sharp knife. Ooh, that slides in nice and easy. Let's check one more. Okay, I feel like those are good. So with that, I'm going to let them sit for just a minute. Got to get this sauce heated back up because this came down just a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my 1 tablespoon of water. Again, mixing this to get that incorporated. If you had any bits on the bottom of the pan that were burnt on, this would be the time that you would scrape those up using either, you know, the wooden spoon or a spatula. You can see it's kind of holding a little bit of a track when I run my spatula through it, so it does seem like there's getting some increased viscosity there, so it's going to do a nice job coating. And with that, I think I'm going to kill the heat, and we can go ahead and put in the Brussels sprouts. Still really hot. Ooh. Come on, guys. Okay, everyone's in. Give these a little toss to get them coated around. I'll do a little shake over here over the pan. This way, if I have any try to escape, at least they'll be contained and I won't make a total mess. Wow, these look super glossy. Oh my gosh. I think that looks really nice. Nice, yeah, I like that. So I've got my cooled pistachios. I'm going to go ahead and just coarsely chop these. And I like the big pieces of pistachio, but at the same time, you want them to be small enough that they can stick into that glaze, kind of hitch a ride on the Brussels sprouts. You don't want just half and whole nut fragments remaining. I think that's not really a great eat-in experience. So I think that looks nice. I'm going to pop these in this little bowl. Then we're adding in the zest of half of a lime. And you don't want to get the white part, so you're just trying to get that bright green bit off. So you want to kind of move briskly across the lime. Don't spend too much time in one spot. And then optionally, you can add crushed red pepper flakes. I like things a little bit spicier, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in for myself, giving this a little toss just with my fingers. Get a pinch of salt in here. And with that, we can go Brussels sprouts onto the serving platter here. You can see this sauce really thickened up, so it's super glazy. Really scraping that pan. I don't want to miss out on any of the sauce. And so this is the finished product of the Brussels sprouts with pistachio and lime from BA's Making Perfect Thanksgiving. And so these Brussels sprouts look absolutely delicious. I cannot wait to give these a try. So let's see, grab this guy right here. So he's nice and kind of bronzed all the way around. Those pistachios are really sticking into the glaze. So let's see. Mmm. Oh my God. This is literally everything I want from roasted Brussels sprouts. The texture combination here is so great. I love that kind of crispy and soft combination. It's kind of like the best of both worlds. And the glaze, it's the perfect amount of sweetness. It's not overbearing. It doesn't feel like candy. It's just sweet enough to kind of make you want more and get you salivating a little bit. A little bit of spice from that crushed red pepper flakes coming through. It's not overpowering. So this is a really, really satisfying preparation for Brussels sprouts, and I'm super glad that I've got this one. So overall, I'm really happy with these roasted Brussels sprouts. The combination of flavors and textures is just spot on, and it's truthfully exactly what I was looking for. So I'm definitely going to make this again for my Thanksgiving dinner, and I hope that you'll give it a try as well. So if you liked this week's video, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.